Good.
Yeah?
Yep.
What is up, YouTube? Blicky Western here. Today, we're going to be diving into an AKM review, specifically the WASR-10, imported by Century Arms International, manufactured in Romania by Cougar Arms Factory. Before we start the video, empty magazine, the chamber is clear. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below, currently in 2025, what you feel is the best budget entry-level AKM that one could purchase that is the go-to for everything you may need. As we stick on the topic of budget friendly, I'm going to take you down memory lane, at least for me. Very early on in life, I've been very fond of the Second Amendment. At 6 years old, I was gifted a 22 LR single shot bolt action on Christmas by my father. I learned to shoot on that gun. I learned firearm safety. From there, as I got older, it progressed to a single shot 410, and then a pump action 12 gauge and some mil-circ guns. Around 16 years old, I knew on my 18th birthday, I wanted a firearm. And nothing is more iconic than the AKM. It doesn't matter if you're pro-gun, anti-gun, you have access to internet, you don't have access to internet. It's so iconic. It's in movies, TV, video games, literature, has probably been involved in more armed conflict around the world than any other firearm. I feel the top three most recognizable guns. Number one is AK, number two is probably an AR-15, and then number three would be a Glock variant. I feel like those three are solid choices. Now, at 16, I knew I wanted the Icon. I wanted a Kalashnikov. There was a couple options at that time. You had Arsenal, who was cream of the crop. Premier still seems to be, as far as main manufacturing goes, top tier, outside of a paint job, but that's a topic for another video. I had M+M Industries. They had their own variant of an AK at the time. There was a AMD 65s that were really popular. You had a not so AK, but almost AK, the VZ58s. And then there was a couple manufacturers that were doing perks kits and throwing those together and essentially shipping those, and they were available for purchase. However, during review of what I wanted for my 18th birthday, I came across the WASR-10. And at 16 years old, I worked a part-time job as a cart pusher, making $4.25 an hour. And I would save up every paycheck. I saved up. And I had a budget of like $1,400 by the time I hit 18. I go into a gun shop in Las Vegas. They had this up on the wall, but just imagine cheap wood stock and a really crappy finish. I don't even know what the finish was, but just imagine one step above a rattle can job, but not exactly the best quality. And when I seen it on the shelf, it happened to be on sale. I bought this gun, not in this configuration, for $550, which included sales tax and a background check. I had enough left over to be able to buy extra magazines, about 500 rounds of ammunition, and then a cheap Condor, I believe, chest rig. In 2006, 2011, this was one of the most top purchased firearms in America, and you could buy them for cheap. So when we're talking about budget, it's certainly gonna play a role in this review. I've had this gun for 12 plus years, 10,000 rounds downrange, and we're gonna deep dive with how it went. At the time I picked it up for $500, currently on the market, if you want a new WASR-10, you're looking at about $1,000, which is gonna play critical in today's review. When this gun started life, the configuration of it was kind of how I mentioned. You had some cheap wood furniture on there, nothing fancy. It was just N22R compliant. So I ended up running it like that for about a year, year and a half, 1,000 rounds downrange. And at the time, I was really heavy into Call of Duty. And on the game, you could throw a dot on there, a flashlight, you could suppress them, swap out the stocks, things of that nature. So I wanted to pimp my gun. So I ended up getting some cheap fore-end. I can't remember. It wasn't NC Star, but it was one of the cheaper Picatinny fore-ends. Threw that on there. Ended up throwing an EOTech sight and a flashlight. I put a extended knob on the charging handle. I threw a folding stock on the butt of the gun. Had a single point sling, some fancy muzzle brake, and then the only thing that has not changed since I bought this gun, and it's been with it almost 12 years now, is this US palm grip. If you've ever shot an AK and you've ever used one of these, highly recommended. Wish they made them for ARs. I'd probably throw one on an AR, but I'll continue to run Magpul furniture on my AR. But this thing is ergonomically sound. It is one of the best grips that I have ever felt on an AK. I've owned 3 other different variants of AK. I ended up selling those because I got converted to the AR-15. I kept the original. If I'm going to buy a new AK, which I probably will soon, it's going to have the US palm grip on there. It's the most ergonomic feeling that I've had. So I ran it like that for probably a year and a half, another 2 years, a couple more thousand rounds downrange. Mind you, all the fancy bells and whistles are on a budget entry rifle. And it got to the point where I'd go and I'd have range sessions because ammo was cheap. So I'd buy anywhere between 250, 300, 500 rounds. In a weekend, I'd shoot 250, 300, 500 rounds. And it got to the point, it was so heavy due to everything that was front facing that I was like, you know what, this rifle's not as enjoyable to shoot, tricked out. So let's go ahead and strip her down. I stripped, because I ended up painting it FDE, I stripped all the paint off of there. I took all the bells and whistles off. I threw on, I want to say, like a cherry wood fore-end, cherry wood stock. I left the palm grip. US palm is going to stay until this rifle dies. And even if this rifle dies, I'll probably unscrew this US palm grip, gold dip it, and wear it like a necklace. But I essentially stripped it down into a more traditional AKM platform. And I ran it like that for years. And I was like, you know what? This gun sits in the safe. I kind of just beat it. Let's set it up, which is the current configuration we'll go over to. But as I mentioned this, I think an important backstory is at one point with the cherry wood forend, I ended up firing so many rounds out of this rifle that the handguards ended up catching fire. I had to pour it out with water. I had to repaint. And I think that was the deciding factor of like, let's kind of give it some bells and whistles, which in all actuality, this is pretty much a stock AK. We'll go tip to butt exactly the current configuration before we continue with the review. So on the end here, you have your stock muzzle brake for an AK, flash hider, whatever the hell you want to call it. You've got Magpul furniture up top. You have the wood fore-end on the bottom. It had the extended dong on there. I ended up making the chop. This allows me to get somewhat of a familiar grip as I would on an AR-15. So I get a pretty decent C grip. The only thing is if I'm going to run it like that, I do have to wear gloves. Sometimes it gets too hot with wearing even mechanics gloves. So I'll end up going the traditional as I'm firing. I'll hold the magazine well, and then my primary hand's on this side. On here currently, I have a pick rail with a TLR3. This was thrown on here for video because currently I am working on something that has not been done on an AK before. And if I'm successful with this prototype I'm working on, you guys will see it. If I'm not successful, it'll never see the light of day. Working back, I didn't really like the knob, the extended knob for the charging handle on AKs, so I didn't want to throw another one on. I have no issue getting a purchase on this bolt here, this charging handle, so I don't see no need. I threw a different version of a wood stock on. It has a little trap door in the back with a cleaning pod. And then I've got some cheap AK sling. So current configuration. As of 2025, I have 10,000 rounds plus through this. Mainly Tula and Wolf, all still case. I have not had any major malfunction with this gun. Occasionally you'll get a stovepipe. With some of these surplus mags, like I've got these Croatian ones. I believe this one's Croatian. Yeah, so I've got a Croatian one. The reason I like to run these is it actually has a setup in the magazine where when you're on your last round, the bolt will lock to the rear, which is nice when it comes to AKs. The only thing you got to consider is even though that bolt locks to the rear, you'll kick this mag out, and when you kick this mag out and you throw one in, the bolt will have already gone forwards. So, I mean, it's added steps, but it's a nice feature to have on AKs. When it comes to the accuracy of this rifle, you're realistically looking at a 3 to 4 MOA. It's combat effective, but don't look for precision shooting when it comes to a stock entry-level AK. You're not going to get that sub MOA, 1 MOA with stock AK. at distance, right? 100 yards, you're not getting that with this. So just some things to consider. In the rifle itself, the only things that I have replaced or installed internally is I've swapped out the recoil spring for a new one. I don't know the maker manufacturer. I seen one on the internet for like 12 bucks. I was like, let me buy that. I swapped out about the 5,000 round mark. So this one's been in there for 5. No issues as far as it goes. And then internally, I have one of the Tapco, trying to think of the name, anti-walk pin holders, which I would take it apart on camera, but YouTube frowns upon. But if you type in AK Tapco anti-walk holder, you'll get like this teardrop looking thing, and it keeps your pins from walking out, which, talking about walking out pins, we'll get into some of the negative things that people have experienced with the WASR-10. Mind you, 2006, 2011, this was the most popular firearm sold. So there's that, right? You're going to have bad lemons in every batch. But the main complaint that when it comes to the WASR series of rifles that people have is quality control. So it's very important on any AK that you're going to buy that you walk through quality control. I believe any firearm you purchase, even if it's from a reputable manufacturer, whether that be a handgun like Glock, or you're buying AR-15s from FN, Colt, you name it, anytime you're buying a gun, you should go ahead and do a quality control check. Just be friendly, ask at the gun store, like, hey, is it cool if I take this apart? So in hindsight, there's that. You just got to show a little bit more extra detail under the hood when it comes to the WASR series rifles. So some of the common things people would run into is your front sight post would be either slanted a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Granted, that doesn't impact accuracy. It's a pain in the ass to get that fixed. So it's something good to pay attention to. You just look down your rifle and you see if it's leaning to one side more or to the other side a little bit more. Other common issues that people would run into is trigger slap. In the earlier models, the stock trigger that came OEM from the manufacturer Cougar Arms, it essentially, the bolt would return to the rear. As it returned to the rear with enough force, it would engage the trigger, kind of reset it, and force it into the shooter's hand, so people would get pain in the index finger. Another common issue is these rifles were originally designed, I believe after this, well, during the assault weapons ban, they were still available because they removed things like the bayonet lug. It only accepted a single stack magazine and some other liberal bullshit in there. But once that was lifted, they ended up converting these to double stack magazines. I don't know if Century Arms does that or if they did it at the factory, but they'd make the cut for it to accept double stack mags. The issue with that is this is a flat receiver, and they put pins in place. Rather than there to be dimples for the magazine to secure it, they put pins in place, and then they have kind of these 2 rails internally. And one of the issues with the 2 rails internally, which this rifle, even after 10,000 rounds, will still do, is you'll get lockup. And it doesn't matter how much you polish those rails internally. I've done that. It doesn't matter how many rounds you fire. I've done that. It's one of the things with the WASR series rifle, just due to it not being the most refined fitment inside, is this will lock to the rear. And I mean, you either give it a good smack home or you just grab onto it. It's kind of like kick starting a motorcycle, but you give it a good few yanks and the bolt will go home. If this was a loaded mag, you just kind of give it a little nudge and it'll kick home. Another issue that was prominent that I experienced was how stiff the safety selector was. It didn't matter how many times I manipulated it. It was super stiff, so I ended up having to pop the dust cover off. You put it kind of at a 90-degree angle, and then you just bend on it just a little bit, pushing away from the rifle, and now it moves free. So talking about kind of the cons when it comes to the WASR-10. If this was still the year I bought it, and you could still pick these up for $500, $600, it would be a solid deal. It would be a great entry-level rifle. It's your first AK that you're purchasing just to kind of get a hold of the manipulations as far as muscle memory goes, and just something different outside of an AR-15. Or if it was like a truck gun, maybe, I won't say home defense unless you're living on a farm, because 7.62 will go through the walls. But maybe a home defense gun if you're living a little bit more rural. Buy a couple, store them in a crate, and so that way when shit hits the fan, you have not only spare parts for yourself, maybe you can arm somebody else. So at $500, $600, this would be an excellent choice. MSRP to this day, well, today, currently, not to this day, is $1,000. I do not personally feel that the WASR-10 is worth $1,000. And the reason for that being is quality control. And you have manufacturers out there currently like Palmetto State Armory, which builds American-made AKs. I've shot my buddies a handful of times, and I might end up picking up a PSA AK. I haven't had no issues shooting theirs, they haven't reported no issues. They have higher-ish round counts. We're plus like 3,000-4,000 on one of their rifles. You also get the backing of, if there is a quality control issue, you can go ahead and send it back to the manufacturer and get a faster either new rifle sent back to you or a fix. I haven't run into an issue yet with the WASR series of rifles, but I've seen horror stories of trying to contact Century Arms International customer service for a faulty product. And sometimes it could take weeks, even if they get back to you. Sometimes they may not get back to you. So based off of that, you've currently got PSA, you've got the NPAPs on the market. Arsenal still leads the way. You've got custom builders. For $1,000, there's better options that you can go with than this WASR. Now, I bought it. I love this gun. We're 10K plus. I wouldn't sell it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm going to run it until this thing, either the barrel warps off from too many rounds or something internally breaks. I'm going to run this gun into the dirt, and then I'll report back with you on how I killed this gun. This was manufactured by the Romanians. It was modeled off of, I believe, the PMMD-63, which is a military rifle. So it kind of does show that this is a variant of that. It does have combat effectiveness. Romania used it. A series of other countries use it. And then this rifle is currently utilized south of the border by the cartels and their gang violence. So it has a proven track record of reliability. And again, I haven't had an issue in that department. But if you're going to spend the money on an AK, especially for something like this, at $1,000, you're going to have to put more money into it to refine it or to trick it out. So definitely go with something different. This covers my review with the WASR-10. It's been a great gun to me. It's had a few rough patches, but it's a Romanian brothel worker. It may not be the prettiest. It may have sharp edges. It functions. It does what it needs to. So that wraps up my conclusion on the WASR-10. I didn't really cover pros other than it's reliable and it's an AK, right? It's reliable. It does what you need to do, and you get that manipulation of arms. Is it extremely accurate? No, but it's combat effective accurate. So that covers my review on the WASR-10. Blicky Western.